your perspective on in terms of higher education. Yogesh, you talked about collapse of education or lowering of educational quality can lead to destruction of nations, right? And you talked about how degree is really just a receipt of bills paid, but it's not. It's really the education of what you learned is really critical. And you talked about, this is really important, you talked about need to train the trainers, train the faculty members in teaching, in innovation, and things like that. What do the next 10 years look like for India's higher education system if these things have to be accomplished?
First of all, Bharat is doing very well, and higher education institutions are also doing very well. Education drives economy or economy drives education. This is an open question. But at least both are interrelated. India took 60 years after independence to become $1 trillion economy. Next $1 trillion was added only after 7 years, that was in 2014. In 2019, we became $3 trillion economy. Last week, we became $4 trillion economy despite COVID. And expectations are that India will add $1 trillion every year after 2030 for next 20 years. And this is only possible, this is only feasible if our higher education institution will prepare right kind of mindset and right kind of mindset in the education system. We need outstanding teachers, engineers, doctors, philosophers in all spheres of life, and I am very hopeful that our higher education system will be able to deliver and will do a very good job, which is expected to be done.
Vinayji, this is a question for you. You talked about you have 19,000 students now at IIT Kharagpur, which is amazing, actually. 16,000 students, and you have a number of joint degree programs with multiple universities. So you're already doing that partnership that we talked about. More collaboration, more recruitment from outside. Your ranking has gone up. You also talked about leadership of Global South, which I didn't get a chance to talk about. This is really important. One thing that is remarkable thing that has happened with the current government's leadership is that, including in G20, it has taken on the mantle of solving problems for the Global South. I think that sense of responsibility that Shri Mohan Bhagwatji talked about this morning is apparent in what the government is doing, what academic institutions are doing. And then you also talked about creating new centers. But you ended with something which was very intriguing for me, which is that you're aiming for top 10 in the world. And that's a really remarkable goal. And I really give you kudos for thinking that big. What do you think is the timeline for getting to the top 10 position for IIT Kharagpur or any of the IITs?
I believe nothing is impossible. And therefore, until unless you say to go to the moon, you will not go to even half a distance. And therefore, I'm sure that we will reach the top 10 in the world, maybe 20, 30. This is a target that we are thinking of. We have gone, and I'm sure by the next year or so, when the QS ranking comes, we'll be jumping another 50 or so. We have our own confidence, and we know what we are working on, because it is a competition, and everybody knows what we are trying to do. Therefore, and I'm confident that the education system, and I will add to what Yogesh ji has said, that we will be also talking of more and more entrepreneurs, more and more startups, and more and more problem-solving students. In fact, we are trying to tell them that you should be job creators and not job seekers.
Absolutely.
And that is the way we are trying to involve them in all sorts of projects. And we have given them an opportunity that you could go to any department, any course that if you want to take for your enhancing your knowledge in a particular area, I think you can go ahead. And that sort of flexibility that has been given using the national education policy, which is already in vogue in the country. So that we have taken care of. We have allowed the students of arts also to take science courses, science students to take arts courses, and I say that Academy of Classical and Folk Arts is there with them, Center of Happiness is there with us. And I think we have Indian knowledge system in which all the 4 verticals, maybe 2,000 students have joined in these. And even in the dance and music that we have here. So that the stress which goes, and moreover, somebody was talking, he said that it is just a way of life, not only that I think he was talking that dancing in several or multiracial situations. No, in fact, it's a language, which is universal language. And therefore, irrespective of which department or which language or which course a particular student is learning, if he goes for dance and music and something that he passions for, I think he will enhance his horizon of thinking only. And therefore, the Academy of Leadership has also been thought that we have to create leaders. We see that the good teachers are not very good administrators. I don't know what type of administrator I am, but yes, he's also a professor. He's also a very good professor, but we don't know. You need to tell us. But therefore, we need to also make our students good leaders. So in that, we are having even a leaders in which we want to call some of the politicians and also to learn from them and also to teach them. Thank you.
So within a generation, a top 10 school, I'm going to have to share this with Subhashish ji, the director of IIT Bombay. He's got a competition with you. Somaiya ji, you get the last word here on this Q&A, and then we'll open it up to our audience. You know, wonderful personal journey, and I really admire your grandfather's vision. He started school within 3 years of starting a company. That shows the kind of people we had at that time. My parents are both teachers, so I really admire that vision. You know, you talked about this, this personal story of you going to Cornell because it was a world-class institution versus Somaiya, which was a Bombay institution. There was a bit of a tinge of irony in that comment that when you made that, and I'm sure it bothered your grandfather and your father, so they asked you to come back and but there is a comment that you made which I really find pretty interesting: is learn from us, do not become us. You have a soul, keep it. Can you talk about what that soul is? I tried to sort of extract that in my talk. What do you see as India's soul, and what can be a unique, competitive advantage, if I could use that term, for India in its educational framework, not following Macaulay's education framework, but something that's uniquely Indian with Indian soul?
At many levels. I would say we are a multilingual country. Many of us have grown up speaking many languages, 4 or 5. He can freely quote Barelvi, I'm just saying it's something that we do naturally. When we are learning from a Western monolingual culture, which has learned to remove other cultures. So if they went to a Native American culture, they removed it. We have learned to coexist and grow and also, be stronger for it. So I think that is, let's assume that we are teaching history. And if you wanted to teach history of Shivaji, and if you wanted to teach that Shivaji history, do you necessarily want to only teach it in English? If you also brought in primary sources in Marathi, just as an example, or if you got Narsi Mehta's bhajans in Gujarati there, if you're teaching Kabir, if you brought music into it, I'm just saying, would you firstly empower somebody who feels disempowered? If you had a person, let's look at the CUET that has come up. Because I run so many rural schools, you find access being difficult. So I'm just saying, suppose you empowered them by creating a much more multilingual, rich environment. I think that's one example. I think our spiritual heritage is remarkable for its richness, diversity. So I think that whether it's in dance, music, literature, composition, language, I think all that is strong, and we need that.
Those are great examples, and I can see where that could ultimately go. That's remarkable. So let's just do a big round of applause for the panel, and then we'll open it up to the audience. I know there are microphones making the round. You get the first question in the back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just keep it close to your mouth, actually.
Professor Somaiya, one of the questions I actually had was, when are we getting our Nalandas and Takshashilas back and you actually answered, and I appreciate you working towards getting the Somaiya University on that track. However, the conference started with a quality education for all, and that should start from the very beginning. And in fact, you just mentioned about rural India, and Professor Anurag, you mentioned about we losing our Gurukul. Is there something in the works to kind of implement a Gurukul kind of a system for rural India where there are limited resources and limited trainings, and all of the things that you mentioned are challenges? What are the probability and possibility of getting that in as one of the very unique things that India has had in the past and can be fruitful in even our current situations?
So I'll just quickly mention something, and I would love for you to speak to your perspective. I actually met with the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, in New York in June when he was there before the Biden summit. And his question was about skilling. There were 7 other university presidents in that meeting with me, and they were all talking about degrees. And Prime Minister's question was, what about skilling? How do you create skills for rest of my population? And my response to him was that health technology innovation doesn't have to happen, either use of it or coming up with it has to happen in tertiary care institutions or higher education institutions. They can happen in rural areas. There are ASHA workers, there are A&Ms who could be trained in innovation framework, and they could find problems. It doesn't require advanced education to understand problems and be a partner in technology development. The technology experts can do the technology development, but you can be the problem identifier. You can be part of the partnership. So I think there are ways you can actually bring education of that kind to distributed setting, to rural setting, which is what I talked about in my slide. It's absolutely possible, and I see that's what's going to be flipping off the healthcare, at least in India, is going to be the game changer for 5 billion people today in the world that don't have meaningful access to healthcare, and also it'll bring a lot of those people into the mainstream of education or mainstream of skills.
Should I? I just think first we need to invest in physical infrastructure in all our schools, wherever they may be. They could be urban or rural. Very good physical infrastructure. We need to have very good teachers also over there. You give, firstly, those are necessary conditions. They may not be sufficient. And then, of course, what kind of programming you have to make it happen.
I'll add to this. In fact, the basics of fundamentals are put in the schools. And you know that the private schools are better than government schools, right? Many places. And therefore, the government has taken up a very strong move. And in the National Education Policy on page 26, it is written that about 25,000 brilliant school teachers will be produced out of the higher education institutions. And that's why Department of Education has been opened in the IITs, in the central universities to take care of that, so that we don't have those problems of this kind, because at that level itself, you see the coaching centers, the students are going who have no money, but they have to sell their land, etc., and they go for coaching because they are not being given right from the beginning. And it is also a move that the primary school teachers and higher secondary school teachers will be getting more or less a parity on the scale as well, salary as well. So there is a good move by the government in this regard. And by 2030, I think, when you have 25,000 top school teachers with good quality of the payment, etc., I'm sure the problem will be solved. Thank you.
I just want to add here, government is very serious about this, and presently I am also having additional charge of National Council for Teachers Education. We have launched a program, we call it ITEP, Integrated Teachers Education Program, which we are admitting teachers, those who are interested in teaching, school teaching after +2, and premier institution of Bharat are requested to start this program. All IITs, ISC Bangalore, NITs, some of the premier institutions like University of Delhi, BHU. So we are experimenting that. It has started in 41 institutions, and this year this program will be enhanced in another 100 institutions. Slowly and steadily, we are focusing on that only. What Professor has said is correct, but this is on the priority of the government.
So I know we are running out of time, so we'll do one question.
Yes, sir. My
somebody already has the mic.
my compliments to all the three panelists. You have delivered the excellent job in within short time. But, sir, my salute to all the present Vice Chancellor, panelists, and all other experts who are doing excellent job for education and driving the entire youth and nation building. But, sir, do you feel that you will have still remain the beauty of autonomous or autonomy? You talk about, we take the lessons of Tapovan and Gurukul, but everyone knows that Gurukul and Tapovan were entirely autonomous. No king can dare to enter in Tapavans without Rusis or Kulguru's permission. Can you, are you enjoying this sort of autonomy or power or, I would say, respect or honor against the bureaucrats or the present government? And will it not harm your delivering the goods to the present education system?
Technically, universities are autonomous in nature, but if you are 100% dependent on a funding agency, you have to follow rules and regulation of that funding agency also. Because law of nature is not that. You decide something to spend, but someone has to pay for it. So, but yes, when it comes to the academic autonomy, there is no issue. But when it comes to administrative autonomy, there are different viewpoints. There are different viewpoints, but yes, technically, yes, universities are autonomous in nature. IITs are autonomous.
Yes.
इनको तो कोई छूता भी नहीं है, देखता भी नहीं इनकी तरफ. IITs are totally autonomous, and university system is also practically autonomous. But yes, there may be some issues here and there.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I wanted to tell. He has already told that we are fully autonomous, sir. And I can tell you that there is absolutely no interference of the government.
No.
And all the course curriculum, etc., that we are defining and we are conducting the way we want in the interest of the country and for the global need. So absolutely. IITs, no question of that. I am sure even the top central funding universities
We
are
don't have
also
an issue.
on the same lines as
No
well.
issues, no issues.
And yes, thank you.
So I know, please, go ahead. Please.
एक ही लाइन सिर्फ.
एक
ही लाइन कि जो नालंदा तक्षशिला की हम बात करते हैं, अच्छी बात है पुरानी बात करना, लेकिन अब पास्ट तो पास्ट हो गया ना. अपनी नई नालंदा या तक्षशिला जब हम नहीं बनाएंगे तो बात कैसे बनेगी? और ये भारत को ध्यान रखना चाहिए. नालंदा भी थी, तक्षशिला भी थी, उसकी हम रक्षा नहीं कर पाए. भारत गुलाम हुआ, सब कुछ हुआ. हमारे में क्या कमियां थीं, इसको भी बहुत सोचने की जरूरत है. मैं आज एश्योर कर रहा हूं, बहुत साल बाद भारत के बॉर्डर सेफ हुए हैं. बहुत साल बाद ये दिन आए हैं कि आज भारत के बॉर्डर सेफ हैं. आज आप शिक्षा के विस्तार की बात कर सकते हैं क्योंकि सीमाएं सारी सुरक्षित हैं. भारत की सीमाएं सुरक्षित होंगी तो शिक्षा भी पनपेगी. अदरवाइज क्या होगा? बनाते रहिए विश्वविद्यालय, दूसरे तोड़ जाते हैं उनको, और हमसे ज्यादा कौन जानता है.
हाँ, हम इसमें थोड़ा सा हम ऐड कर देना चाहते हैं कि हम लोगों का इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम करीब सब IITs में है और यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में भी है. और हमारी जो बिल्डिंग है वो 130 साल पुरानी है, वो जेल थी. उसको हम लोग, हमारा विचार है कि बाय 2030 इट विल बी ऑन द लाइन्स ऑफ तक्षशिला एंड नालंदा, बिकॉज we want to have that building to have the whole Indian knowledge system of all the verticals into that. And we are going to invite people. We are already on the spree of inviting foreigners from all across the world to learn what was there in our Vedas and what is the current knowledge that we have. We are having a comparison and just check what we had there. So this is going, and I think somebody was talking, so I wanted to tell this answer that yes, we are having at IIT Kharagpur 130-year-old building, which is now Sahid Bhavan, but that is going to be the next Takshila of Bharat.
That's a really good note to end on. Let's not do any Q&A. the panelists are going to be available to interact. I would like to end because I've been told very clearly to end on time, and I dare not violate that. Let's just do a big round of applause for our panelists, Yogesh-ji, Viren-ji, Samir-ji. Actually, this was such a privilege for me to have such leaders of academia in India as my fellow panelists, and it's really a joy. It's a privilege for all of you to be able to hear them. They are really shaping the future of higher education in the country, and I would argue in the global south, and I would say ultimately the world. Thank you for that. I would also like to thank Nachiketa-ji and Anil-ji for helping run this session. And last but not the least, can we do a big round of applause for Amit-ji? Yes. He did a phenomenal job of keeping time so that I didn't have to. Yeah. Thank you.